Somewhere right now, in a driveway in Ohio, in a parking lot outside a Texas office building, in a garage in a nice California suburb, someone just pulled up in a brand new car and their friends are clapping. They are smiling. They are saying things like you deserve this, or wow, you made it, or look at you doing so well for yourself. And the person behind the wheel feels it too, that warm rush of pride, that feeling of finally arriving. Because in America, nothing announces success faster than the car in your driveway. We do not ask people how much they have in their retirement account. We do not ask about their credit score or their savings rate. We look at the car, we look at the badge on the grill, we look at the shine on the paint, and we make a judgment in about 3 seconds. That judgment says this person has made it. But here is the part almost nobody wants to talk about. That same car, the one getting all the applause, the one getting the congratulations and the compliments, is very likely one of the single most destructive financial decisions that person will make this entire year. Not because cars are evil, not because driving something nice makes you a bad person, but because of a number. A number so quiet, so hidden, so buried inside monthly payments and gas station receipts and insurance statements that most people never actually calculated in their entire lives. And once you see this number, you cannot unsee it. It will change how you look at every single car on the road, including your own. According to AAA, the average cost to own and operate a car in America is $10,728 every single year. Read that again, $10,728, not once, every year for an average car, not a Ferrari, not a Lamborghini, an average, ordinary, forgettable car sitting in an average driveway. That number is not rent, that number is not a mortgage. That number is not student loans or credit card debt. That is just the cost of owning a car that gets you from your house to the grocery store and back. And here is the truly uncomfortable part. Almost nobody feels this number because it is spread out. A little here on a car payment, a little there on gas, a little more on insurance, a chunk on maintenance. It never shows up as one giant scary bill. It just quietly bleeds you month after month, year after year, while you are busy admiring the paint job. So today we are going to expose this thing completely. We are going to rip the curtain back on the single most underestimated wealth killer in the entire American household budget. And by the time this video ends, you are going to know exactly how to slash this number, sometimes by thousands of dollars a year, using 4 specific tactics that most people have never even heard of. If that sounds like something worth 15 minutes of your life, do me a favor right now before we go any further. Hit that subscribe button. Because on this channel we talk about the money conversations nobody else is having, the silent leaks in your finances that no one warns you about, and I promise you this is one of the biggest ones. Now let me properly introduce myself, because if this is your first time here, welcome. My name is David Marshall and this channel is David Marshall Finance. I'm not a Wall Street guy in a suit trying to sell you something. I am the guy who got obsessed with figuring out where regular people's money actually goes and, more importantly, where it secretly leaks out. I have spent years digging through the numbers that banks, dealerships, and insurance companies really hope you never calculate. And transportation, the thing sitting in your driveway right now, is one of the biggest, sneakiest leaks of them all. Here is a question I want you to sit with for a second. What if the car in your driveway is quietly costing you more than your retirement contributions? What if it is costing you more than what you spend on groceries for your entire household? For millions of Americans, that is not a hypothetical, that is their actual reality, and they have no idea because cars sit in plain sight as the ultimate silent wealth killer. Nobody budgets for depreciation. Nobody budgets for the true cost of financing. Nobody sits down and adds up every single dollar a vehicle drains from them in a year. So let's actually do that math together, using a completely realistic example. The kind of car millions of Americans drive every single day. Let's talk about a 5-year-old used Honda Civic. Not flashy, not a status symbol, the definition of a sensible, responsible, boring economy car. The kind of car your smart cousin drives while everyone else makes fun of him for not having something nicer. Well, guess what? Your smart cousin is winning, but even he might be losing more than he realizes. Because when you add up everything, the depreciation, the financing costs if there is a loan, the insurance, the fuel, the maintenance, the registration fees over a 5-year ownership period, the true cost of owning that basic Honda Civic comes out to approximately $43,993. That breaks down to around $8,800 a year for the most basic, unglamorous economy car on the market. Now here is the number that should genuinely disturb you. The average American gross salary is around $54,000 a year. That means this one single basic car, the plain, sensible, nothing special Honda Civic, is quietly consuming about 16% of the average American's entire gross income. 16%. Not for a luxury vehicle, not for a truck with all the upgrades, for the most modest, responsible car choice you can make. And that is the moment most people's stomach drops, because if the boring choice costs this much, imagine what the flashy choice is really costing the person getting all those compliments in the driveway. So how does a car actually cost this much? Let's dismantle every single piece of this monster, because once you understand the anatomy of this cost, you will never look at a car the same way again. The first and most brutal piece is depreciation. Depreciation is simply the loss of value your car experiences over time, and it is without question the single biggest, most silent thief in the entire equation. Here is the part that shocks almost everyone the first time they hear it. The moment you drive a brand new car off the dealership lot, in that literal instant, it loses somewhere between 10 and 15% of its value. Not over a year, not over a month, in minutes. 99% of new cars behave this way. You could drive it around the block one single time, park it back at the dealership and try to sell it, and you would already be out thousands of dollars, even though the car is functionally brand new. That is the depreciation curve in action, and it is the monster hiding inside every new car purchase. This is exactly why financially savvy buyers do something specific. They avoid buying brand new almost entirely, and instead they buy in the sweet spot of the depreciation curve. That sweet spot is typically a car that is around 3 to 5 years old, with somewhere between 30,000 and 40,000 miles on it. Why that specific window? Because that is roughly the point where the previous owner has already absorbed the brutal early depreciation hit for you. The car still has plenty of reliable life left in it, but you are no longer paying full price for the privilege of watching value evaporate in real time. Buying in the sweet spot of the depreciation curve is one of the single most powerful wealth-preserving decisions you can make in your entire financial life, and almost nobody talks about it, because dealerships make far more profit pushing you toward new. The second piece of the puzzle is taxes and registration. This one sounds boring, and honestly it kind of is, but it adds up in ways people rarely account for. Every vehicle you own comes with recurring registration fees, and depending on your state, ongoing personal property taxes just for the privilege of having that car titled in your name. Now here is where it gets even more expensive for a lot of families. If you have multiple vehicles, what we would call fleets reduction becomes a real opportunity. Many households have 3, sometimes 4 vehicles for a family of 4, when in reality 2 well-maintained vehicles could handle the same household needs. Every additional vehicle in your driveway means additional registration fees, additional insurance premiums, additional depreciation, additional maintenance. Reducing your household fleet from 3 cars to 2 is one of the fastest, most overlooked ways to reclaim thousands of dollars a year. The third piece, and this is where things get genuinely painful, is financing. Here's the uncomfortable truth about how most Americans buy cars. They put down very little money, sometimes financing 90% or more of the vehicle's value, and they do this at interest rates of 6% or higher. Now stack that on top of a car that is already losing value every single day through depreciation. You are paying interest on an asset that is actively shrinking in value the entire time you are paying for it. This is what we call the interest drag, and it compounds against you in the worst possible way. You are not just losing money to depreciation. You are paying a bank extra money for the privilege of owning that depreciating asset. Every single month, more of your paycheck disappears into interest, money that could have been going toward your retirement account, your emergency fund, or an index fund quietly compounding in your favor instead of the bank's. And this brings up something most people never even consider: the opportunity cost of transportation. Every single dollar that goes toward an oversized car payment or excessive interest is a dollar that is not compounding for your future. If that extra couple $100s a month had been invested instead of financed into a car over 20 or 30 years, we're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in compound returns forgone. That is not an exaggeration. That is simply what happens when you choose a depreciating liability over a compounding asset, year after year, without realizing it. The fourth and final piece is the one people underestimate the most in their day-to-day budgeting: fuel and insurance. On average, people spend around $200 a month on fuel, and this number has been climbing for years. On top of that, average insurance premiums sit around $115 a month, though this number swings wildly depending on your driving record, your location, your age, and believe it or not, the exact car you drive. Most people mentally lump these into just gas money and my car insurance bill, without ever stepping back and seeing the full annual total. When you add these two together, you are looking at close to $300 a month, or roughly $3,600 a year, just to keep fuel in the tank and coverage on the policy. So now you understand the full anatomy of the monster: depreciation eating your equity in real time, taxes and registration quietly nibbling away every year, financing and interest drag compounding against you instead of for you, and fuel and insurance forming a steady monthly drip that almost nobody tracks with any real precision. All of it combining to create that staggering $10,728 average annual cost of ownership, sitting in plain sight in nearly every American driveway. Now here is the part of this video I actually love the most, because understanding the problem is only half the job. The other half is doing something about it. So let's talk about 4 specific, actionable tactics you can start using immediately to slice this cost down, sometimes by thousands of dollars a year. Tactic number 1 is what I call the annual retention call, and this one alone can save you a significant chunk of money with almost zero effort. Here's what most people do not realize. Insurance companies count on your loyalty and your laziness. They know that once you sign up with them, most people simply never shop around again. Rates quietly creep up every single renewal period, and most customers never notice or never bother to push back. So here is what you are going to do. Pick one specific date every single year, maybe your birthday, maybe the first of a certain month, and mark it on your calendar as your official insurance shopping date. On that date, you call your current provider and you ask directly for any new introductory rates or loyalty discounts available. Then you get quotes from at least 2 or 3 competitors, companies like State Farm, Progressive, or Geico, and you use those competing quotes as leverage. Call and threaten to switch because the retention department is your friend, and I mean that quite literally. Almost every insurance company has an internal department whose entire job is to keep you from leaving by offering you a better deal on the spot. Most customers never even know this department exists because they never push hard enough to get transferred there. This single habit, repeated every year, can easily save you several $100s annually for nothing more than one uncomfortable 15-minute phone call. Tactic number 2 takes that exact same retention strategy and applies it somewhere most people never think to use it: your utility bills, especially internet service. Let me share a quick real example of how effective this actually is. Someone I know calls their internet provider every single year right around the anniversary of their sign-up date and calmly explains that they are considering switching to a competing provider because of the price. Now here is the key part. They are polite but firm, and they specifically ask to be transferred to the retention department. Almost every single time, that retention department comes back with a lower rate, a temporary discount, or a bundled deal that effectively undoes the price creep that happened over the previous year. This exact same strategy, calling once a year and threatening to switch, works remarkably well across internet providers, cable companies, even some subscription services. The retention department is your friend, and once you understand this loop exists, you will never accept a quiet price increase again without at least one phone call to push back. Tactic number 3 is where things get a little more hands-on, and it is one of my absolute favorites because the math on this one is honestly staggering. It is called DIY basic maintenance, and specifically learning to change your own oil. Now I know what some of you are thinking: that sounds intimidating, or that sounds like something only mechanically inclined people can do. Here is the truth. It is a 20-minute process that you can learn from a single free video online. You do not need a garage full of expensive tools. You need a jack, an oil pan, a wrench, and about 20 minutes of your afternoon. Now let's talk about why this matters so much financially. A typical dealership or quick lube oil change costs somewhere around $100 once you factor in the markup on parts and labor. Doing it yourself typically costs a fraction of that in parts alone. Over the average lifetime of driving, most people will go through somewhere around 200 oil changes. If you save even $100 on each one by doing it yourself, that is $20,000 over your driving lifetime, from one single skill that takes 20 minutes to learn and about 20 minutes to perform each time. $20,000 from a skill you could learn today for free before dinner. Now let me tell you a story that perfectly illustrates why the next tactic matters so much. Because this next one could have saved a man named Walter Higgins a whole lot of stress, time, and money. Walter was a retiree, the kind of guy who took great care of his car because it was one of the last things he still had full control over in retirement. One afternoon, driving home from the grocery store, his check engine light came on. Just lit up right there on the dashboard, glowing orange, completely unexplained. Walter panicked. He immediately assumed the absolute worst. Engine failure, transmission issues, some catastrophic and expensive problem lurking under the hood. So he did what a lot of people do in that moment. He parked the car in his driveway and simply refused to drive it. For an entire week, Walter avoided his own vehicle, arranging rides from neighbors and family members, convinced that starting the engine again might cause permanent damage. Eventually, worried and out of patience, he had the car towed straight to the dealership, paying for the tow and then paying for a full diagnostic service appointment, expecting to hear devastating news about his engine. After nearly an hour of waiting in an uncomfortable lobby chair, a technician walked out and delivered the verdict. The gas cap was loose, that's it. A loose gas cap had triggered the entire check engine light, an entire week of panic, an unnecessary tow, and an expensive diagnostic fee, all for a 2-second fix that costs absolutely nothing. Walter's story is not rare. It happens to people every single day across this country, because most drivers have absolutely no way to check what a warning light actually means before they hand their keys and their wallet over to someone else. Which brings us directly to tactic number 4, OBD2 diagnostic independence. Every car built after 1996 has something called an OBD2 port, and this little port is basically a direct line into your car's internal computer. When your check engine light comes on, your vehicle is storing a specific OBD2 code that explains exactly what triggered it. The problem is, almost nobody owns the simple, inexpensive device that reads this code. Most people just drive straight to a mechanic or dealership and let them run the diagnostic, often paying a diagnostic fee before any actual repair work even begins. Here is the fix. You can buy a basic OBD2 diagnostic scanner for a relatively small one-time cost. You plug it directly into the port under your steering wheel, and within seconds it tells you the exact code triggering your warning light. From there, you can look up that specific code and immediately know whether you are dealing with something as serious as a failing sensor, or something as laughably simple as, you guessed it, a loose gas cap. This one small purchase gives you leverage and knowledge every single time a warning light appears, protecting you from unnecessary diagnostic fees and preventing mechanics from ever being able to overcharge you for a problem you already understand. So let's bring this all together, because I want you to walk away from this video with absolute clarity on what we just uncovered. Transportation, something almost every single American treats as a status symbol, something we compliment our friends on, something we celebrate in driveways across this entire country, is quietly one of the most destructive forces working against your net worth. The average American spends $10,728 every single year just to own and operate a car. Even a basic, sensible used Honda Civic can cost nearly $44,000 over 5 years, consuming 16% of the average gross salary in this country. Depreciation hits the moment you drive off the lot. Financing compounds against you instead of for you. Fuel and insurance quietly drain your monthly budget without you ever noticing the full annual total. Cars sit in plain sight as the ultimate silent wealth killer, and now you know exactly why. But you also now hold 4 specific tools to fight back: making your annual insurance retention call and remembering that the retention department is your friend, applying that same retention pressure to your internet and utility bills every single year, learning the 20-minute skill of changing your own oil, a decision that could realistically put $20,000 back in your pocket over your lifetime, and arming yourself with a simple OBD2 scanner so you never again end up like Walter, panicking over a warning light that turns out to be nothing more than a loose gas cap. If this video opened your eyes to something happening quietly in your own driveway right now, that is exactly why this channel exists. David Marshall Finance is built entirely around exposing these silent leaks, the ones nobody warns you about, the ones hiding in plain sight inside your everyday bills and everyday decisions. If you want more of this, more real numbers, more real strategies, more of the conversations most financial content completely ignores, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss the next breakdown. because trust me, transportation is just one leak. There are several more hiding in your budget right now, and we are going to expose every single one of them together right here on this channel.